Welcome to the Entrepreneur Stories podcast. Jonathan Herps is your host. He is a strategic advisor, coach, and mentor to entrepreneurial founders, business owners, and CEOs. In this podcast, he chats with entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies.
Hi there, it's Jonathan Herps here. Welcome back to my podcast, Entrepreneur Stories, so Scaling Up. This episode is episode number 107, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Aaron Christie-David, who's Managing Director of Atelier Wealth. I hope I've pronounced Atelier the right way, Aaron.
But spot on, yeah.
Great. Welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Great to have you on. Great to be on here. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. So listen, maybe we could just start with, maybe you could tell us a short story of your entrepreneurial journey so far and also about Atelier Wealth.
Yeah, thanks very much. So Atelier Wealth is now 7.5 years young. It's an idea that came about. I was working, my background has been in corporate marketing and predominantly in financial services. So I worked previously at Wizard Home Loans, worked at Commonwealth Bank more recently. And I guess in those two roles, working predominantly with mortgage brokers. And look, I went to uni, I did an undergrad and a postgrad in marketing. I didn't think I'd see myself as a mortgage broker. And I guess it really came about, Bernadette and I, my wife Bernadette and I were on our honeymoon and we're traveling, and we had this grand dream of going to New York and, studying over there and then coming back and attacking our corporate lives. And we just looked at it going, is that truly going to bring us more freedom around time and starting a family, or would it take us away? And we just realized that if we went down that path, we'd be traveling more, we'd be working more, not really delivering on that whole life journey that we wanted. And Bernie was like, look, brokers, why don't you become a mortgage broker? And it kind of planted the seed and came back a few weeks after our honeymoon. And then she said, you still haven't done anything. And I always like a little bit of a challenge. I respond to that. I'm like, right. And within the next week, at that stage, I found a mortgage choice franchise that was for sale in a beautiful part in Sydney, Alexandria. And I reached out and within a few weeks, I bought that franchise and left my role in marketing, with no backup plans on funds. I had a business plan, but really it was kind of just back to the wall and let's see how this goes. And it's not something I recommend for everyone, but it kind of works for me in the way that I operate. And that was great because that gave me a really good foundation in terms of being self-employed. And then after being under the franchise agreement, I stepped out within about 1.5 years and then worked on an exit plan to then move into running our own business, which is Atelier Wealth today. And I can tell everyone, mate, we've broken all the rules in business. When I work with my wife, we work together, and her brother-in-law, Damien, who's been with us from nearly the start. And it's a rule that we've broken that's worked very well for us, mate. And here we are 7.5 years later, 2 offices, one in Sydney and one down the South Coast. And, mate, really enjoying it.
Fabulous. So tell me, given that you've broken every rule, if you had to start from scratch, what aspects of your personal leadership development would you prioritise more?
Yeah, personal leadership. I'd probably not learn to sweat the small stuff. And it's hard because at the start, the small stuff matters. But I think it's not taking everything on board. And I think that's probably where you go through those times of burnout, a little bit of fatigue, for example. I've had adrenal fatigue at some point as well. And when you burn the candle at both ends, something gives. And it's usually on a home front where you probably feel a little bit more inclined to vent. And it's not fair probably to others. So I think for me, looking back, I'd find ways to just chill out a little bit more. And it's hard again, Jonathan, because you care a lot about the client outcome. You care about the client journey. You care about every single person that entrusts you. But then you have to know that something's a little bit out of your control. So how do you step up into those challenges as well and go, right, I'm going to control what I can control. I'm going to learn to let go a little bit more and probably enjoy life in a little bit more balance as well. I think that's where, good leaders are now bringing up that next set of leaders with them as well. And it's finding ways for me to then, okay, how do I change or adapt my leadership style based on which level of growth that we're at as well.
there's some great short answer, but God, there's some good lessons in there. If I can highlight a couple, one of them is control what you can, and and if you can't, let it go. But if perhaps adding to that, as an entrepreneur, and it's one of the things I coach is, yes, control what you can control, but also focus on where you can make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I do with my clients is get them into a rhythm where, one day a week they're focused on the business, meetings, which allows them 4 days a week to actually, work on the business, if that makes sense. So condense all the meetings that they can into one day. And then the other days, 1 day a week working on the business, preferably not even in the office.
Yeah.
The other day is a couple of hours a week working on the business before you do anything else. It's extraordinary how much of a difference that makes. And then the other one, your comment then about I think you actually said personal freedom, and it's something I absolutely push hard with my clients. Entrepreneurs, very, very hard to switch off, as you know, and building in days and banks of days where you actually can switch off with your family, with your friends, whatever it might be. I wrote a blog recently about I never have good ideas in the office. My good ideas come in the shower or out walking or out sailing. Yeah, that's some really good points. Thank you. So
I think to your point there as well, I think and I look back years ago, when you don't have that luxury of freedom, it means that you're always putting out fires. Like you think about so many business owners that are maybe, I don't want to say, it's nothing against, say, solo business owners, but when you that means you effectively have to do everything in the business. And I've been there, and I look at our industry in mortgage broking, 60% are solo operators. So you're so stretched that you're doing everything that you just don't have that freedom to think when you're constantly reacting, when you're constantly just answering emails, calls, trying to put fires out, trying to move the business forward. Like can you imagine a whole day of like client calls and meetings, and then at the end of the day, hey, do some thinking time. And it's no wonder that gets pushed to the back burner. It's no wonder that becomes a low priority, because there's no way that you've got the freedom to go, I'm going to have a whole day blocked for working on my business, when you're so deeply entrenched in working in your business as well. And that's probably the tragedy that happens to a lot of business owners, where they're burnt out. They can't even see the bigger future for themselves they started with, because they're just constantly on the back foot. And it's a real shame when I see the potential of, peers, colleagues as well, across, doesn't matter what industry, going, but you're worth more. Why aren't you, not only in dollar sense, but why aren't you finding great team members? That's going to help the economy. It's going to help someone else's life as well, when you've got that ability to recruit, train, grow, but the pie just gets bigger.
Yeah, and you made a really good point there, Aaron. Solopreneurs, I mean, most of them essentially just made themselves a job.
That's exactly.
I made a comment to you earlier about, just before we started, about, my favorite things in my business, what I call my unique ability, things I love and things I'm good at.
Yeah.
I coach CEOs and founders. I write knowledge pieces. I write every day. I'm posting on LinkedIn and to my clients about learnings for CEOs, and I do this podcast.
Yeah.
Me doing the podcast, this is what I do. Everything else to do with the podcast is delegated to different who's. The recruitment, you've never met me before. You and I haven't, we have conversed, but, via, Calendly, which has a workflow, which sends you all the questions and all of that. The moment this is finished, one of my VAs will take this and send it to Vitaly in the Ukraine. That's my bid for the Ukraine, who'll do the podcast, the editing, and the whole process. This is the only bit I do.
Mate, exactly that. Can you imagine what your employment has then offered other people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like Ukraine, like that blows my mind, right? Especially in a place like Ukraine at the moment. Versus if you try to do everything, it's like, okay, I'm going to upload the podcast, I'm going to book my guests individually. It's like, it's such a smaller mindset, just because what you think you can control, or you might do it better than someone else. It's like, well, someone else can learn. You're going to give them a chance to step up. they're going to then grow in their own ability and confidence as well under your tutelage. Like, we're all getting here.
Yeah, and I look at your business. I'm just, let me try and where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people in the photo of your people. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what you see, but the team has probably grown. We've got a team of 17 in the Philippines as well that are employed by us to us. So it's we've always taken that view that an abundance mindset plus a pretty humble view that I can't do everything, and if I do it, I can't do it that well as someone else.
Exactly right.
Well, mate, a rising tide lifts all boats. So let's get on board with that philosophy.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting. One of my goals is to help educate 1 million entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
sounds a little bit way out there, but that's one of the reasons for this podcast.
That should be. I mean, how you can amplify this podcast, you can get it. You can't possibly talk to 1 million people one-on-one. So they've got assets and resources that can reach the many if the messaging is right, if the target's right as well. So credit to you. Yeah, the ripple effect.
Okay, so going back, it's sort of the following question: how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business? Is it by delegating a lot? Yeah,
delegating is one thing. I also think in there is probably the demands, and it's family demands. It's a irony, right? It's obviously self-select to have a family, just like you self-select to have a business as well. I think there's a healthy balance that almost naturally gets created. Like, I've got far less time now because of children, and I want to be around more. And co-owning a business, with your spouse, that has a different dynamic as well. So for me, I'm very forced to then go, right, I've got less time, which means I've got to say no to certain things. Okay, we still need to do that as a business. That means it's become a who question. So who in the business can step up? Who in the business can take this on, and who can own it, for example? And again, we always talk about, and you probably hear this constantly, it's like, it's not abdication, it's delegation. It's getting people to step up and step in. So for us, we've had to put a lot of coaching. So you go back years ago and we laid a strong foundation in and around training, onboarding, coaching, feedback loops, offboarding team members that weren't the right fit, or they wanted a different opportunity. That's cool. And then we're left with a really tight group of, A grade players that we just go, right, how do we invest in everyone's growth and learning development? That's one. I think stepping out of the business. So Bernadette and I did the 4-day work week since last year. That just came about by accident because we didn't have care one day for our girls, and I took the day off, and then it just stuck and it became fun. And so we stack our Thursdays with kids activities. So we do swimming, for example, do a lunch or a cafe with the girls. And that just means naturally when I've got one less day to work, I've got to be hyper productive in those other 4 days. But it also means the team need to fill in those gaps when I'm not around. So they've got to be able to have that ability to solve problems or make decisions if myself or Bernadette aren't around. And then there's got to be a bit of an order in and around, okay, if this then happens, if that happens, if the wheel's going to fall off, then let us know beforehand as well.
Tell me, how old are your daughters?
We've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Fabulous. Can I give you a recommendation?
Tell me. I'm all
go and get a podcast called How Other Dads Dad.
Okay.
How Other Dads Dad. So it's Hamish Blake, who plays Lego Masters.
Yeah.
And start with the first one, Rob Stitch.
Okay.
So Rob Stitch, he was a partner at McKinsey's, then became a comedian, then he produced The Castle and the Dish. Yeah. The lessons for a father, I've got 2 9-year-olds. The lessons for a father from just the one, but there's so many more.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
Okay.
It's a must-do. Okay?
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Continue. And the other one was, he's in season 2 now. The other one was Scott Cam. I don't know if you like watch TV, but he's the host of The Block. And it's another really good, terribly interesting insights about different people. But I'll never forget, your kids, my kids, a bit young for this shit. But Scott Cam's comment was, when the kids get to the driving age, buy them a single cab single door, single row Hilux ship. It's like, why? Because you can't get kids in the back egging them on to go fast.
Yeah.
But, that's a bit ahead of us. But really, I would highly recommend that.
Nice one, thank you.
Yes, and it's interesting. I block out my day. No one will ever get a meeting with me before 9:30 in the morning, because that's my morning time with the children. I get up, we do breakfast, make them lunch, drop them to school. I then go for my walk. And I try, and 4 days out of the week I will be here when the kids come home from school to greet them when they come home from school. And that's then there's another block of time I have with them. It's so important. I agree with you.
Yeah, okay. And look, it's probably come up in our chat later, but it's the long game, right?
It is.
Playing the long game. And I think that's where probably having a family-owned and operated business, it means that we can't have success in the business but have failure at home, right? Yeah. We can't have failure at home, winning at home, but then not doing well in the business. So there's got to be like this balance that we strike between them. It'll never be perfect, but I think we're trying, and that's all I'm saying.
That's exactly right.
Trying. Find what works for yourself. Like yourself, you're starting at 9:30. I think I just start by 9:30 default when I've got to drop the kids off, just purely based on the amount of time it takes to wrangle a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old to get to daycare and back here.
No. Look, admittedly, I am up a bit earlier than that and doing a bit of a block of work. That's the key thing. So let's talk about the other key people in your life, your employers. What qualities do you look for, and how do you go about building a positive culture in the business?
Team is the greatest strength I think that we have. Not I think, it is the greatest strength that we have. Obviously, we love clients. We love the fact that people choose us as their mortgage broker. That's a given. But we will only be able to leverage time. We'll only be able to leverage our knowledge through having a wonderful team. So when we're looking for team members, I'd say every single team member that we've got in this business, bar one, did not come from within the industry. And we've tried to hire and recruit within the industry. We just haven't found that. We haven't found a sweet spot yet. So what we do is we continue to look outside of our industry, hire on attitude, hire on hunger, hire on the ability to see a long-term future, and we want to partner with them. And I think that's where we've really worked on our team culture, which is this is a partnership. You can choose to work here, and that means we're really going to be on our game to reward that choice and that decision for team members to turn up. And we look at one initiative that we launched probably a couple of years ago is Atelier Health, and we really put some measures in place that team members that were excelling in their health, we run an internal reward campaign around that. We've then launched our wellbeing days, 2 days off throughout the year for team members to take a day off, no questions asked, and health and wellbeing becomes paramount for us as well. Flexible working, like most workplaces, work from home, hybrid work situations. So I think for us, it's listening to team members what they want. But I would say the one biggest thing that you do your team days and you do your team activities example. But the one thing that I think has single-handedly turned up the dial in this business around culture is what we call Salad Mondays. So as a business, we'll provide the salads, and we sit out on our back deck here at the office, and everyone puts tools down at 12:30, and we have the lunch together. So everyone brings their lunch, we share the salad, and we have the most fun because I think it's unstructured, it's unplanned, it's not like a team day where you're forced, for example, and we just have laughs. We connect, we learn more about team members than you probably could over a structured conversation, and I'd say anyone like that's the lowest cost, but the highest return that we've ever had on team culture.
What a great idea.
So I'll tell everyone, I'm like, Salad Mondays, go for it. You're promoting health, but you're also just promoting a bit of that connection over having a lunch together. We're all going to eat. We'll just eat together.
Yeah. What a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
So what do you reckon has been your biggest learning since you've been a business owner?
Ooh. I'd say what got us here won't get us there. And I'll give you a bit of context probably on that one. So when you're in that initial startup phase, it's like grow. And you look at our industry, 50% will fail in their first 18 months. So we got past the 18-month mark. And then you look at business stats and, the 3-year mark becomes a bit of a cutoff point for businesses that succeed or fail. And then you get to the 5-year mark and you look at businesses that are unprofitable, for example, or struggling or haven't hit $1 million revenue as an example. And so we kind of had these call it milestones in the business that like, if we can just get here. And then we've got, the last couple of years, I won't even take COVID into it. I'll just take the fact that, on our growth trajectory, not every idea is a good idea. And so what works for us at early growth startup phase isn't going to be the same level of growth because now we've got a little bit more to lose. Like a bad decision strategically will set us so far backwards. So a bad decision will either cost team members, they don't agree what we're doing, for example, or we're going to not serve our clients the right way because we're too inwardly focused. And so we've had to then think longer, harder, slower, for example, about making these decisions because it may sound like a good one, but when we go to execute, implement, it's resources. It's going to take us out of doing one thing to do something else. Is that the best use of our time, energy, resources as well? And it's hard because I'm wired to then, I'm wired to create. I'm wired to then move at a certain pace. And it's like, okay, we just need to slow down our line of thinking, be challenged while we're doing it, and what outcome we're optimizing for. And I'd say that is the biggest transformation that we've had in the business in the last few years.
If Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book on I don't know if you read it, but what got you here won't get you there.
Okay, perfect.
Exactly that title.
Okay.
And it's one of those, I don't know if you can see sort of a bookcase there. It's one of the required reading for my clients in their first year because it's about changing that mindset.
There you go. Yeah. So it's really hard because you probably see a lot of businesses that still get caught up in that energy of like, I've got to like hustle. It's like, that's cool at the start when you're trying to make sure that you got proof of concept or you got enough clients to be minimally viable financially. But at some point, that's not the long game and it's not scalable either.
I spend most of my time trying to get my clients to do less.
Isn't it?
3 to 5 things every day, 3 to 5 things every quarter, 3 to 5 things every 3 years. And any more than that. And there are great stats out there that says that show that companies who try and do more than 3 to 5 things at a time, who don't do more than 3 to 5 things at a time, their revenue compared to others who are doing more is 45% greater.
Wow!
So getting that power, number one, getting the choice right, but then getting the power of focus.
Yeah, isn't it? The power of clarity and focus. It's telling.
It's extraordinary. So
yeah.
So what do you see as the main challenges you've got in the business now and going forward?
The main challenge was, I'd say, recruitment is probably our biggest focus, and we don't see it as a challenge. We see it as a big area of focus. Excuse me. So, I hear a lot of colleagues maybe say, "Oh, there's not enough good people out there." Well, there's great people out there. We've got to find it. So that means we've then got to sharpen our, employee value proposition. We've got to double down on TE culture. We've got to look forward and go, okay, what is our doing a lot of work around what we call our future organizational chart. So what does that future look like that we go, okay.
You sound like me as a coach.
There you go, right?
You are pulling out the future org chart is one of the key tools I use early on.
There you go. So I was singing from the same hymn sheet here, mate. But it's that whole thing about let's reverse engineer. So where are we trying to get to? Will that decision get us there, for example, quicker? And the only way we're really going to scale without losing the client experience and without losing the essence of the business and the brand is having quality team members. So it's not quantity, it's quality team members. How do we attract, retain them, grow them, find more like them, for example? And that doesn't matter if we're here in Australia or here in the Philippines, the same principles will apply as well. And so it's like clients, you don't want to just chase the new ones, you want to keep your existing ones. So for the team, it's doubling down on their training development, their aspirations, for example. And so I get a real kick now out of seeing our team's growth. And I see team members buy properties, for example, which that's the business that we're ultimately in. We're in the business of property and home ownership. When I see our team at do that, whether here or in the Philippines, I'm like, we're doing it for our clients and our team. There's something special about that as well.
Thank you for that. Question on your future org chart. Do you put a revenue number in the boxes when you're looking to hire?
We do because we've got to then know what we're operationally, what those costs will look like. So when we've got to bring on a team member, onboarding cost, return on that time investment as well, like when we start to see that going to the green. So we've really got to kind of do our numbers. And again, my energy is, background in marketing. It's like I've got the ideas. I need to level that out with the numbers. So that's probably why, and when I spoke earlier about, the golden rules in business, we speak about, the E-Myth has those three energies, right? The creator, the general manager, and I think the technician from memory. So I was the creator, Bernadette was the general manager, and Damien was the technician. And we kind of slotted into those roles unknowingly until we kind of read the book and we're like, that's a bit like us. But that's usually one person. We had the luxury of three people.
Yep.
And that gave us like this, triangle, such a good foundation that it gave us this good base to build off. And I think we were somewhat lucky in the sense that we kind of found a place in the business. And then now that we can just build off those expertise that we've got as well.
I've got a blog coming out tomorrow on return on luck. And, how do you get luck in a business where you start, you keep going, and and the luck will come. So I'm going to cover two things there. Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth, now known as The E-Myth Revisited. Arguably, in my mind, the top read for any small business owner about how to build and replicate yourself and get over, the issue. Like in Australia, only 4% of companies get over $1 million in revenue. Only 0.4% get over $10 million in revenue. And the E-Myth is a great book for helping you get over that 1 million because most founders don't delegate and don't build replicatable systems and processes. And the other point was the future org chart. So imagine an org chart, then another one 3 months, 12 months, 2 years out, with future hires, function hires, grade those boxes and put a revenue number in. So you're not planning, I'm just going to hire people. I'm going to hire people, like I'm going to hire another salesman at $1.1 million revenue. The other thing that gives you is that, number one, that's when you can afford to, it's giving you the discipline. But this is for, obviously, Aaron, for our listeners. But it also allows you, well, if I'm going to hire another salesperson at 1.1 million and I'm now at 1 million and 50, well, guess what? I'm going to be at 1.1 in 3 months' time. I can start hiring that person now. So it gives you a couple of disciplines thrown in. So thanks for that.
Check out your blog when it comes out. That'd be great.
Yeah. Have a look at LinkedIn, something every day.
Okay.
So tell me, when you think of the word successful, who comes to mind and why?
There's a lot of colleagues in our industry. So if I kind of look at our industry, there's people that have been around for a long time and businesses that I probably want to replicate. I've been very vocal. Someone like Jeremy Fisher runs a business called First Street. Got a mad amount of respect for someone like Jeremy. Plays the long game, no ego. Great team, great culture, and really giving back to the industry. So that's the ethos that I want to kind of follow as well.
Yep.
The word successful, I get uncomfortable with that because I think we're just, there's a few awards and stuff that comes out, but we're just getting started. At 7.5 years, we're just getting started. But if I'm looking at it, successful is really seeing the team growth and then client growth. So when clients are now starting to hit their straps financially, that's again the game that we're in, finances. So when they're kind of excelling financially, awesome. We know that we're doing a good job. And then when team are starting to excel financially, I'm like, we're doing an awesome job as well. So when I look at successfully, I'm like, okay, let's take a cherry pick from like who's doing something exceptionally well. So we look at branding, we look at Athena Home Loans. They're doing branding really well. How do we be more like them? When we look at like leadership for example, in our space, Commonwealth Bank has fantastic leaders at the top end. How do we be more like them? When we look at businesses that are a bit cheeky, you look at Virgin, okay, how do we be more like them? And then you go, okay, but then there's other moments of truth with other businesses that we've been to locally. Like there's some, there's one place that we went to and they welcomed us and they had all our names written up on the board when we walked through the door. It's like, that's awesome. We can take that, for example, as well. So it's not only that big end of town, the big corporates. There are some small to medium businesses that are doing some exceptional work. How do we steal? Because they're quite replicable. Like you can take those ideas of similar sized businesses. So being around a network of really good businesses as well gives you the idea to cherry pick ideas that are great for yourself as well.
I call it rip off and duplicate.
Oh mate, isn't like imitation the best form of flattery? Is that the same?
Exactly right. It's a key strategy I teach. Always give accreditation where you get it from. If you look at me writing, but rip off and duplicate.
Great. And I think the other part with success is it's not only about, say, awards or the outward side, what people see, it's behind the scenes. So I think there's a level of like personal success, and I see this. Again, I can only really talk to the inner workings of my industry, which is mortgage broking. People will see, they'll take broker of the year, or they'll take, accolades galore. But then, and again, there's no judgment here, but then there's like the marriage is in tatters, or the personal life, or the health is in tatters, for example. It's at what cost? At what cost? And maybe the relationship had nothing to do with the business side, maybe it was something else, and that's cool. But if the business then led to that, then what truly is success at that point? And I think for me, I've seen it, I've been around it, and I just like, to me, health, like I'm big on that, for example. So you said you go for a walk, I like to train, I like to do something, I like to be active. There's other business owners that we do like a Spartan race, and we kind of made that a bit of a thing, and we get together and it's like, it's not even talking shop. It's like, hey, just make sure you're training, and we show up for that event. You
don't mind if I don't join you for that?
Look, it's optional. It's optional. You can do the small one. And it seems like you put outside your comfort zone.
As a 63-year-old who spent 18 years in the army, no, don't need it. I don't need Spartan. But
no, man. You got to find what you love, and this is it. Okay. Like, forced into like a boot camp if you don't want to do it, but you just find something you enjoy.
No. And it's interesting. I was talking to a client yesterday, and I'm on him about getting a personal trainer. He's at an age of life where he needs another coach. And in this case, someone to help him get fit and stay fit.
Yeah.
So tell me, you're obviously a reader. Any books or podcasts you'd recommend?
Yeah, I don't know where everyone stands on someone like Alex Hormozi, right? Like I think he just puts out I think the message and what he puts out is awesome. Like you think about like $100 million leads. It's absurd, but it gets you to think bigger. And I really like what he's putting out. And I think also just you go, in such a short space of time, this guy's created this insane profile. Like, how do you do it? Yeah. So you kind of scratch the surface there a little bit going, okay, he's I think you mentioned, Tim Ferriss before. So a couple of books, Tim Ferriss, Tool of Titan, 4-Hour Workweek. They're staples. When you look at other staples around when you're starting out, E-Myth is awesome. As you're growing, Keith Cunningham has been awesome as well. The Road Less Stupid. I think that's been a really good book. What we've also done as well is we run what we call an accelerator in our team. So we pick a book, probably over about a 4-month period, and we do that together as a team. So the most recent one we did was Atomic Habits. Yep. And then we share, every 3 or 4 weeks, we'll just share and go, right, what did you get out of the book, for example? What are the insights? We just share that as a team. And we're learning, it's learned together as well, but there's a bit of a common language within the team now as well. We did the 5 love languages in the workplace. Again, some team members, and you get really good insights, some team members need to spend quality time, with the leader. Some team members need words of affirmation. Some team members, they don't want any pomp and ceremony. They just want to go about their acts of service in the business as well. So, again, it's an evolution from where I was all those years ago, because at the start it was grow, grow, grow. So it was that real like Gary Vaynerchuk at the start. How do you grow, grow, grow? And then I think as we've matured and as we've evolved, going, okay, how do we scale up? There's heaps of books around, profit first, which I think is fantastic as well. And then you find a few podcasts. So for me, I find more dad business owner podcasts, because that's where I am in my journey as well. And then when it comes to content, then it's like now I'm moving more into the marketing space. So I'll read more around copywriting. I'll read more around growing the marketing leadership. And one of the podcasts, I think maybe on Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, again, awesome podcast. That's another one I'll throw in the mix. And there's this concept of talent stacking, which I think has really kind of resonated with me. So, again, I'll give you the context in our industry, 18,000 mortgage brokers, but then you take 18,000 mortgage brokers. If you can work with property developers who want to build a multi-million-dollar portfolio, that's a unique skill set. Then if you can kind of work on lead generation and then hiring a great team, that puts you into a different skill set. Then if you can build great partnerships or have another talent in and around, developing staff, that's another unique, string to your bow as well. And then the more that you kind of just find these niche skills and what they call talent stacking. I was like, they use the example of Jay-Z, rapper, producer, then has merchandise, then has, alcohol brand. And then you go, but there's very few rappers that have elevated themselves to that status. He's done it. And then so you take your industry and you go, how do I elevate myself to that 1% status? So here's what they need to do. And that's something that I got out of that podcast, which I think was awesome.
Forever learning is the answer, isn't it?
What is it, sorry?
Forever learning is the answer.
Oh, you're always a student, mate. Always a student, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a couple of points in there, but one, I have underneath my screen and tape here, I've got two quotes. All stress, frustrations, and bottlenecks can be traced back to an asset deficiency.
Yes.
And the second one is everything is downstream of lead generation.
There you go.
Yeah, and Alex Hormozi is a really interesting one to look at there. There's not a lot new that he is actually espousing, but he managed to launch a book and had 500,000 people on a Zoom call for the launch, and he broke Zoom. That's how well he did that was the execution piece, how well he did the marketing.
Correct. Yeah. And then he's amazing. Then you look at again, the psychology around it. Someone like a Tony Robbins, he's again, not for everyone, but you're going to cherry pick the ideas that are great for yourself or find someone that you resonate with. And we've been privileged to go to Unleash the Power Within quite a few years ago, and you get something out of that, right? I think, again, investing in your knowledge, education, training personally, business coaching would hands down be the number one way to rack,
Thank you.
Down the dial. It's not even to blow smoke. It's just to say, look.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Every business owner is trained to go to a professional. You go to a professional accountant, you go to a professional financial planner, you go to a professional architect when you want your home build. Why wouldn't you go seek out a professional when it comes to building a business? And the do-it-yourself model just shows consistently just does not work.
Well, it's interesting. Clients come to me when the DIY model is broken.
Exactly.
And it could be a mixture of you the person, it could be you the leader, or it could be you and the business. But that's why they come to me, because the DIY is broken. It's interesting. Yeah. So listen, I just wanted to jump back. So we're talking about a lot of books, and I talk about a lot of books all the time. So maybe a quick lesson on how I read books, because that yellow button at the top right of Amazon costs me about $3,000 a year. Okay, just on books. I get paid to have that knowledge, but so when I get a new book, here's the Uncommon Service. This is a great one for you by Francis Frey.
Okay.
So Uncommon Service, and the other one I think you should read is The 5 Dysfunctions of the Team by Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah,
and that Pat Lencioni one is for the whole team to read. But so I get the book. What do? I look at the front cover. I look at the back cover.
Yeah.
I look at the inside front cover. I look at the inside back cover.
Yeah.
I look at the introduction. and I read the introduction, I read the conclusion. I then look at each chapter and read the introduction and the conclusion. That will take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to read a book.
Yeah.
I'll only deep dive any further if I see value in that. Now, one of the things I've since done recently, I've taken that description and built it into ChatGPT as a standard prompt. So because the number of books I have that, frankly, I just have not got to. I've just got stacks of them. But, I will now use those prompts, front cover, back cover, inside front, and get ChatGPT to give me a 2,500 word summary based on that.
Wow.
Extraordinary how much that AI is accelerating my learning.
Okay.
So just a hint for you.
Nice. I'm all ears when it comes to using tech like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something on my website about what books you should read if anybody wants it.
Yeah.
My last question. Any last piece of advice or parting words for other business owners who are looking to grow?
Yeah, I'd say not every idea is a good idea. I'd go back to that. And again, that knowledge about what got you here won't get you there as well. But also, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's something that I need to get, I constantly get told and reminded to, by Bernadette as well, when I want to kind of move at a pace. It's like, okay, yep, I see it, I hear it, but let's just think this through as well. So I think having a good sounding board or a group around you. So if you don't have a good peer group of businesses that are ahead of you or where you want to be or where you aspire to be like, if you're not surrounding yourself with those A-grade players, you're going to sit back in the pack. And I think that's probably where if you want to take that leap to the next level, you've got to be around top tier players. And the example that I give is I played cricket, not at a super, super competitive level, but I played at a pretty decent level. And there was the grades lower than us, and they just turn up. They didn't have the great equipment. They played on lower quality grounds. And then you got like the guys that were extremely top grade players, professional umpires. The gear was awesome. The training was 4 or 5 times a week, for example. There's a big distinction between those players and the low grade players. It's everything around that went into it. But again, there's a belief, there's a peer group, there's the gear, there's all the resources as well that come with being a top tier talent. And that's where if you want to be that in business, then you've got to be around top tier talent as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that. I've got a third book for you, sorry.
Tell me.
10x is easier than 2x.
Well, mate, I've just put that on my list. Like, I got told that by someone last week, and I've looked it up. Is it Dan Sullivan?
Yeah, Dan Sullivan is the author. He has been my coach for the last 3 years.
Wow.
I always have 1 or 2 coaches coaching me.
Yeah.
And Dan, he and a co-author have written 3 great books, but the 2 of them, Who Not How, and 10x is easier than 2x, are absolute must-reads for entrepreneurs.
Beautiful.
The 10x is easier than 2x. So the bit that tweaked with me just then was his co-author was talking about his son was quite a good tennis player.
Yeah.
And the question was he going to go all in on tennis to get a college scholarship and all of that sort of stuff in the US? And the question, the father asked the son, is this what you want to do? And the son said, yes, Dad, I think it is. And he said, well, we're going about this the wrong way. And the son said, what do you mean? He said, well, there must be, they live in Florida, and there must be 1 or 2 coaches in Florida who have the track record, the experience of taking tennis players from your level to the pros. Let's find out where they are, who they are, and hire them to get you there. Putting the right people around you, putting the right coach around you. Yeah. Go out and find the right person to help you accelerate to where you need to get to. Someone who's got that experience, made those mistakes, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both those books, Who Not How and 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan, absolutely must read for you.
Beautiful. Down.
Aaron, listen, thank you. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you reaching out, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and look, it's as always, there's some great, not even snippets, there's some fabulous learnings for other entrepreneurs out there. So I really appreciate it.
Mate, I'm happy to share. It's just like we we're a great community where people want to see each other do well. If I can learn something that then can pass on to someone else, and then I hear the next guest and I'll learn something from them. Like I said, we're constantly students and always want to hear from great guests. So, mate, well done to you for facilitating.
As I said, there's 107 of these out there now. It's a process. So, listen, thanks again.
Pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Take care.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you watch/listen. It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the learning gets. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in entrepreneur stories of scaling up. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to admin@scaleupgrowth.co. Put "be a guest" in the subject line and tell me a little about yourself. If you want to gauge where your business growth potential is and identify where the biggest opportunities in your business lie, or where the key needs that you need to concentrate on right now are, take our assessment where you will receive personalized advice for improvement. It's quick and free. Go to scaleupgrowth.scoreapp.com. If you would like to work with me one-to-one, I love coaching and get the best outcomes that way. Send me an email at jonathan@scaleupgrowth.co and put one-to-one in the heading. Tell me a bit about your business and let's see how we can apply a great strategy for your business. So that's it for this week. Tune in next time for more great learnings from a scaling entrepreneur.